Hello, candle lovers! Thank you so much for tuning in to me today. My name is Greg, and this is all about candles. Happy Sunday, everyone. I hope everyone's been having a fantastic weekend. Every Sunday, I like to do the WWW, the weekly wax wrap-up. This is a really quick breakdown of all the candles that I finished burning this week, how they smelled, how they performed, all that good stuff. You know, I've actually picked up quite a few new subscribers recently. Shout out to all the newbies. Thank you so much for subscribing. Welcome to the circus. What happens in the weekly wax wrap up is I go through all of the candles that I finished burning. I talk quickly about the fragrance, the strength, the throw, the performance. I usually show a little bit of video of what the candles looked like when they were burning. And then once I get through all of the candles, I usually do a little bit of random candle company chit chat, just talk about what's happening at the different candle companies, what the new releases are. Then I usually will talk a little bit about my personal life, go a little off topic at the end of the videos, and lately I have been doing Sex and the City recaps. There's this awful show on HBO called And Just Like That, and it's like a sequel to the Sex and the City series, and it's so terrible it's good. I watch it so you don't have to, and I've been doing recaps of that show at the end of all my weekly wax wrap-ups. I know that not everybody's going to be interested in everything in these videos, and so I do mark all of my videos with chapters so you can navigate down below to the parts that you are interested in watching and skip past the parts that I'm boring you with. And I've got a good weekly wax wrap up for this week, you guys. Grab a snack. Lots of candle brands represented here. I've got some Bath and Body Works. I've got some Goose Creek. I've got some Homeworx, a Village candle, a Yankee candle. So all of the big 5 brands that I buy from are represented here this week, which doesn't happen very often. So I'm excited to get into all of these candles. Let's kick things off with some Bath and Body Works. I finished burning this blue Bungalow candle, which was one of my favorite candles in this tropical collection when it came out. I love the fragrance, I love the colored wax, I loved the packaging on this tropical collection. I bought so many of these candles when they first came out. We had a boring lid on this one and a really, really beautiful, beautiful blue wax. This tropical collection was poured in 2022. But at the very, very end of 2022. So they came out for, I believe, the Tropical Collection in January 2023. I was in love with this collection. I bought so many of them, and I'm down to only having like 3 or 4 left for me to burn next summer. And Blue Bungalow is one of my favorites. I think that Blue Bungalow came out in candle form a really, really long time ago, but it was something completely different than this Blue Bungalow. The scent notes on it are salted sea breeze, beachside eucalyptus, and floral shores. And I mean, this is just really kind of the epitome of a candle that I love. You know, it's very aquatic, very lush, green, a little bit tropical. For me, this is just a perfect summertime candle. It's got a little bit of a bamboo-y vibe to it, just a touch of mintiness from that eucalyptus. There's quite a nice sort of big, bright, lush green component to this fragrance. It's a little touch, like almost a little touch perfumey. You know what this reminds me of actually? Right now I'm burning Rain by Village Candle. This is actually a little bit similar to Rain, except that Village Candle doesn't have a eucalyptus note, and you're definitely picking up something just a teeny bit mentholated in this fragrance. I really liked it. For the last couple of summers, I've been hoping that this candle comes back, but it just never does. It performed really well. I think this is like the 3rd time that I've burned this candle. I burned it all the way down until the whole thing had liquefied and the wick nickels started to drift off there, as you can see. That's when I called it a day. Very, very little discoloration, very little sooting. I'd say that this candle really performed like a dream. You know, I wish that the strength and throw had been a little bit better. I'd say that in my more open area, it's a solid 6. For me, a 6 is acceptable. A 6 is like a passing grade. Definitely had a presence and a nice sort of tropical warmth to it. When I put it in the bedroom, it was easily getting up to like a 6.5, so totally acceptable. I really liked this candle, and I'm sad that I don't have many of them left because I really don't know if we're ever gonna see it again. I also finished up a Cactus Blossom from Bath & Body Works. I was really curious to burn some of the new revamped White Barn core candles, and Cactus Blossom is actually a fragrance that I've always really liked. I think they did a great job updating the packaging on this White Barn core collection. We had regular white wax on here, and I believe, yeah, thick ropey wicks on this candle. I like Cactus Blossom a lot. Since it's one of those candles that's always on the floor, it's around all year long, I think that we tend to sort of like get kind of tired and used to seeing it all the time, but I've always maintained that I think this is a really lovely fragrance. The scent notes on it are desert cactus flower petals, fresh sparkling citrus, and warm vanilla coconut. And yeah, this is a really, really nice sort of creamy vanilla floral. I've got to be honest with you guys, I don't think I've ever really smelled like a cactus blossom like flower before, so I don't have a point of reference on what that should smell like, but it's sort of a nice kind of soft and sweet white floral or like a pink floral vibe to me. And it's a fairly nice, bright, sweet floral on the top. And then in the lower register of the candle, you do pick up on a little bit of coconut, some creaminess, that vanilla. I really like this one. I think it's nicely balanced. I think it's one of the more interesting floral fragrances that Bath & Body Works gives us on a regular basis. And I was pretty happy with how it performed. The old White Barn core line was notorious for bad performance. Those candles would always dud out at the halfway point, and so then the strength and throw would just stop. I'm happy to report that that's not what this candle did. It burned really nice and steadily all the way from the top to the bottom, just a tiny bit of discoloration at the end there, and I think that that was mostly because I let that last burn go off for a little bit longer than I should have. As you can see, those wicks are still like really, really tall there, but it was a nice clean burn from top to bottom, no dudding out, no issues with any of that. I'd say that the strength and throw on this was a pretty solid 6.5. I'll give it the same as this blue bungalow. I think in my more open space, it was about a 6. Then in the bedroom, it was a 6.5. So not a powerhouse, but totally acceptable. Definitely had a presence to it, and just a really nice, lovely, bright, but also warm floral fragrance. Yeah, I like Cactus Blossom. I think this will be a repurchase for me and a recommendation for you. I also finished off this Tiki Beach from Bath & Body Works. And I believe that this was the first wave of tropical candles that we had this year. The other candles in this collection were like vanilla coconut, coastal paradise, something else. We had a cute white lid on here, and we had white wax. And I believe, yeah, these were like the thin core wicks. I really like Tiki Beach. It's one of those tropical fragrances from Bath & Body Works. It comes back every year, and I pick one up every year and give it a burn. Kind of like Cactus Blossom, it's kind of got a nice sort of creamy vibe to it. The scent notes on Tiki Beach are warm vanilla musk, orchids, toasted coconut, and yeah, a really nice coconutty, tropical floral fragrance. I really, really love. What I think sets this candle apart from some of the other sort of coconut floral tropicals out there is the vanilla note in this is really quite prominent. There's a really nice, smooth, creamy vanilla base to this fragrance, and the coconut note in here I think is wonderful as well. On the top there is a little bit of a floral note, so I think it's a really nicely balanced candle. I mean, people don't get super excited about this fragrance anymore because it comes out like clockwork every single a year. And this year's version burned really nicely. I burned it all the way down until I could see the wick nickels. I think that I might have the reason why that looks weird is just because I must have let it sit around for a bit after blowing it out, but then I moved it somewhere before the wax had completely hardened, so that's the only reason why it looks kind of weird there. Really nice clean burn from top to bottom. I do think that this version really, you had to limit the burn times. I believe I remember that the flames would get really high and quite ridiculous quickly. I'd say maybe 2-hour burn times were what I had to go with this candle. The strength and throw was good though. I think Tiki Beach is almost always a pretty solid 7, and that's in my more open space too. Absolutely a 7. I don't think I ever put it in the bedroom, but I feel like in a more medium-sized space, it must be getting up to a 7.5. I really like Tiki Beach. I'm already I feel like I'm already mourning summer, you know? I bought 25 fall candles from Bath & Body Works over the last couple of weeks, but I'm not quite ready to get into fall stuff yet. I always cling on to summer for as long as I can, because where I live here in Calgary, usually we have really nice warm weather all the way up until the end of September, and if the weather is that nice, I will keep burning some summer candles until the end of September. I start mixing fall stuff in, for sure at the end of August, but I hang on to summer for as long as I possibly can, because fall is a very short season where I live. Usually maybe we have 1.5 months of proper fall when the leaves are falling and it's crunchy on the sidewalks, and that usually only happens for about a month until bam, it's full-blown snow time. Okay, moving on. I also finished up this candle was called Sedona Sandstone, but it's Patchouli and Rosewood. They released this sort of weird destination collection. When did this come out? This candle was poured in 2023. They released this weird destination collection, which were all very blatant repackages of fragrances that had been around for a pretty long time. And so they took Patchouli and Rosewood and called it Sedona Sandstone. I really love this fragrance though, so I don't really care what kind of packaging it's in or what they're calling it. And in fact, on the bottom, it actually does say Patchouli and Rosewood, so it's not even they were really trying to pull one over on us. There was another one called Blue Icelandic Waters, which was a repackage of Deep Ocean. And then there was another one called Bali Rainforest. That was the worst one. That was yuzu and white pineapple, I think. But anyways, I love Patchouli and Rosewood. The scent notes on it are patchouli flowers, pink pepper, and exotic rosewood. And this is a really nice, deep rose fragrance, I think, for the most part. The first and foremost impression of this fragrance is a rose fragrance, but it's a very deep, woodsy, lower level fragrance. I really like this. I think it's kind of musky, kind of sophisticated. I think that this would actually make a fairly nice perfume. There's something a little bit peppery in here, and just a touch of something almost a little bit funky. I think it's really interesting. This fragrance definitely sits in a mid to a lower range with a bit of a rose note on top and a really nice, almost smoky, deep woodsiness in the base. Something a little bit peppery, a touch floral. I really like this. It performed pretty well too. I burned it all the way down till I could see the wick nickels. The wax just got a touch discolored at the very end there. I'd say that in my more open space, it was easily a 6.5. In the bedroom, it was definitely a 7. So perfectly adequate strength and throw. Really clean jar left behind. So not a lot of sooting or discoloration or anything like that. Yeah, Patchouli Rosewood, this will definitely be a repurchase for me and a recommendation for you if you like sort of deep woodsy floral fragrances. You know, if you don't like deep woodsy fragrances, if you don't like rose fragrances, that's definitely not for you. But man, I really enjoyed that one. Island Bliss. Moving on to some Goose Creek candles. I finished up this Island Bliss. I loved this tropical collection. I thought that they looked gorgeous. Each of the candles in this collection featured some sort of a different like tropical animal. And the thing is, though, is that a lot of the candles in this collection, for one reason or another, had performance issues. You know, I put out a review, or maybe I just covered it in a weekly wax wrap-up of Vanilla Sands, which is one of my favorite fragrances from Goose Creek. But the Vanilla Sands in this tropical collection this year had really weird wick problems. And also, you know, there's another Paradise Gardens in this collection, had some burn issues as well. And that's a shame. These are all candles and fragrances that Goose Creek has put out before that haven't had these issues. And somebody in my comments mentioned, I think it was Review Junkie. Review Junkie mentioned in my comments, I believe, that they had a whole bunch of issues with the candles in this collection. And I hate to confirm it, but I have too. Not all of them, but I'd say that this is the third candle from this collection that really didn't perform the way it was supposed to. The scent notes on it are coconut water, sweet kiwi, and island vanilla. This is actually a little bit similar to Tiki Beach. I'd say Island Bliss, though, is much fruitier than Tiki Beach's, and less coconut. A little less coconut happening in this, but it's a very similar vibe as like a Tiki Beach candle. It's a really nice, creamy, tropical fruit fragrance. I pick up on quite a bit of coconut. I wouldn't necessarily pick out kiwi in here, but definitely something, definitely that kind of tropical fruit that's a little bit citrusy, a little bit acidic, quite sweet, but also a little tart, but it's balanced really nicely with a deep and rich vanilla note. Oh, yeah, I love the way that this fragrance smells. It's not super coconut forward. I'd say you get more of that fruit than you do the coconut. You've got some bright sort of fruits happening on top, a little coconut in the middle, and then in the base, a really lovely, warm, creamy vanilla vibe. I like this fragrance a lot, but this candle, ooh, big issues, you guys. Now, that wax doesn't actually look that bad. But that's because I put this much of the candle under a candle lamp. So the first half of it, the first third of it burned really nicely and it performed all right. I'd say it was probably getting up to like a 6 for strength and throw in my more open space. So not one of the strongest Goose Creek candles for sure. I burned the first third of it. It was about a 6 for strength and throw. But then by the time I got one of the burns that I had going, I mean, I hadn't even burned it for that long, maybe 2.5 hours. But I looked at it and it was just black. Like, it got really, really discolored really quickly and just out of nowhere. Like I said, I didn't let it burn for a ridiculous amount of time or anything. It just got extremely discolored. But then I put it under a candle lamp in my kitchen and it did perfectly fine. Under the candle lamp in my kitchen, I'd say it was actually getting up to like a 7 for strength and throw. It was pretty powerful. I know that this wax, it doesn't look that bad now, but that's because I put it under a candle lamp. And so all of the wax kind of liquefied and all sort of mixed together. So even though when I was burning it, there was a layer of like black grossness on the top of this candle, that kind of disappeared once I put it under the candle lamp and the entire candle had liquefied. I will repurchase this candle because I burned this candle last summer with no problems at all. Like, no issues at all. I'm telling you, there's something about this line that it feels like they had some production issues. I don't know if it was the wax formula or the wicks that they were using or what have you. And it's a shame because I loved all of the fragrances in this collection and they looked beautiful as well. I should probably note, I don't think this candle came with a white lid. I think it just came with a regular like metal lid. I just did that to dress it up a little bit for myself. I also finished up Coconut Beachwood. Much more positive news from this candle. Coconut Beachwood from Goose Creek. I forget what this collection was called, like Tropical Paradise or Tropical Dreams or something like that. I really liked this collection. I liked that there was a little bit of a darker aesthetic to it with really, really bright illustrations. And we had a black lid on these candles. And this candle had a pretty dark, like green wax on it. I loved this fragrance, you guys. The scent notes on here are coconut shells, island teak wood, and vanilla sandalwood. And it is just a lovely woodsy coconut fragrance. It's a little bit in the same vein as mahogany coconut from Bath and Body Works, except the wood note is quite different in this. This is a little bit of a deeper, kind of sandier, but also creamy wood note. It's a very low-ranging candle. For like a tropical coconut fragrance, this definitely sits in a lower fragrance register than you're probably usually used to. It's got a really like rich and dark coconut note to it, and a very, very creamy, but robust woodsy note as well. Man, I love this one. I love this. This might be my new favorite coconut candle from Goose Creek for sure. Like, I love it. I've already repurchased this candle. This is definitely a recommendation. I burned it all the way down to the bottom here until I could see the wick nickels. And there was colored wax on here, but despite that colored wax, you can see that it got a little bit dirty, folks. There's quite a bit of markings around the side of this jar. That is actually, there's a little bit of wax dragging. But then when you do get right down to the bottom, you can see that the discoloration in the wax was leaving some markings along the side of the jar there. However, this didn't happen probably until the last third of the candle. Really, really nice, clean, smooth burn for the first like 2/3 of the candle. And then that last third of it, it did get a little bit murky and a little bit sooty. Had to blow it out, trim those wicks down to little nubs, relit it again. It seemed fine and it performed quite well. I'd say that the strength and throw was about a 6.5 in my more open space. Man, all of these candles this week were sitting in a very similar like strength and throw rating. I'd say that in my more open space, this was getting to like a 6.5. When I put it in the bedroom, it was definitely getting up to a 7. Just a really nice, rich, woodsy coconut fragrance. This year, Goose Creek also released Palo Santo Coconut, which I was really excited about, but I ended up not loving that fragrance so much. I didn't think there was enough coconut in it. I didn't think it was really that well balanced. So Coconut Beachwood kind of ended up being the woodsy coconut candle that I was really looking for from Goose Creek this summer. This really hit the spot. You could definitely pick out the coconut and the woods. There was a nice balance and a lot of layers to this fragrance. This will absolutely be a repurchase for me and a recommendation for you guys. Also finished up Buttercream Sprinkles from Goose Creek. You guys know how much I love a good vanilla candle. I love vanilla fragrances. We had a white lid on this one. This is sort of like the Goose Creek packaging, which is sort of the equivalent of their like White Barn Core candles. Like this is the packaging they give their candles that are around kind of all year long. Some of the favorites, the most popular ones that the company has. The scent notes on Buttercream Sprinkles are warm buttercream, vanilla sprinkles, and sugarcane. I really liked this fragrance, but this candle was a hot, sooty, dirty mess. A hot, sooty, dirty mess, you guys. And The fragrance hasn't actually, the fragrance is still intact, which is why I put the last half of this candle under a candle lamp to get the rest of the fragrance out of here. It's a really nice, rich, like buttercream frosting fragrance. This gets repackaged at Christmas time as white Christmas cake. And I burned white Christmas cake in the winter and I had no problems with it. Like, it was a really, from what I remember, a really good, nice, clean burn. I was able to finish the whole candle. But for whatever reason, this packaging on the buttercream sprinkles, this version didn't do very well. I like the fragrance. It's a very, like, deep, rich, sort of almost thick, like vanilla fragrance. Like, it's not overly sweet though, which I appreciate, which was my concern, because when you think sprinkles, you think super like sweet and sugary and icing, but this was more buttercream than it was sprinkles. Just a really nice, rich vanilla. Very low in the register. This is not like a super bright, like top-heavy vanilla fragrance. This was a very like deep, rich, and thick vanilla fragrance, and the first half of it burned okay. I'd say when I was burning the first half of it, it was probably getting up to a 6.5, maybe even a 7 for strength and throw, which is pretty good. And maybe the first 2 burns were perfectly fine, but then the third burn, it just got really dirty, really murky. The wax started to get discolored. You can see that there's some soot stains already happening on the side of the jar here. And this candle, I put it under a candle lamp until the entire thing had liquefied, but you can still see how dirty this wax got. I mean, really, really not good. It was so problematic that I was afraid that the fragrance was gonna start to get really wonky. And so before that happened, I put it under the candle lamp in my kitchen, and I got really good fragrance out of it that way for like a week. I'd say that under the candle lamp, this was like a 7.5 for strength and throw, which for a vanilla fragrance like this is really, really good strength and throw. However, yeah, I mean, I can't recommend this candle, although I probably will repurchase it if it comes out in the winter time as white Christmas cake. I'll probably repurchase it again because, like I said, I didn't have a problem with that version of the candle at all, just this one. And, you know, Goose Creek, they have some great fragrances. They have some great candles. I would say that I thoroughly enjoy about 80% of the candles that I get from Goose Creek, but they do have a problem sometimes with the dirtiness of their burns. Now, I have a really high tolerance, I think, for soot and for candles that can get a little bit messy. You know, I definitely don't like candles billowing soot and like sooting up my whole house and like, you know, needing to wash the walls and everything. I don't completely turn a blind eye to it, but I don't like 100% soy wax candles, you know? And Goose Creek has, I think, some of the strongest candles in the industry right now, but every now and then, and it happened to me twice this week, every now and then you do get a candle from them that's just gonna be a very dirty burn, you know? That's just the way it is, right? However, I would rather take that risk and once in a while have a dirty burner that needs to go under a candle lamp. I'm okay with all of that. As long as it's a candle, I like the fragrance and it performs well. You know, we're getting to like a 6.5 or a 7 for strength and throw. I can forgive a candle a lot of sins if it's giving me a fragrance that I like at an adequate strength and throw. Now we're moving on to some of the different brands. I finished a candle from Homeworx this week, and this is Sea Salt Lavender. And this is an absolutely gorgeous photographic wraparound. This is the Homeworx 18 ounce format with 4 wicks. They say that these candles should burn from 35 to 50 hours. We've got a lid there with the Slatkin & Co emblem. I really, really love this candle. I think this is probably the second or the third time that I've burned sea salt lavender from Homeworx. I had to get the scent notes off of the website. We've got a little bit of a scent story here for me to do a dramatic reading of. Sea salt air gently caresses aromatic lavender from Provence, fragrant blue sage, and seagrass, creating a fresh seaside moment. And we've got top notes on this candle: Provence lavender, salt air, and blue sage. Middle notes, it just says Mediterranean, bergamot, sea glass, and thyme leaf. And base notes of sun-bleached woods, moss. Now, I absolutely adore this fragrance. As far as a floral fragrance goes, man, this is just right up my alley. I will say that the lavender note in here, it's a French lavender, so it is quite a sharp lavender note. It's quite a stern lavender note, but it doesn't get into sort of a soapy laundry day or like medicinal territory. It's a nice, bright, sharp lavender note, and I really, really like it. And there's a fair bit of saltiness in here too, a fair bit of brininess. It's not really one of those like tropical beachside floral candles. It's much more, it's really focused on that sort of airy brininess and the lavender note more than anything else. I do pick up on a little bit of a sweet herbaceousness in the top note of this fragrance, which would be, I guess, yeah, that would be the blue sage. Blue sage is a little bit softer and a little bit sweeter than like white sage is. And yeah, that really comes across in the top note of this candle. The heart of this fragrance, the middle of it, is definitely that really nice but sharp lavender note. And then in the base, you do pick up on something a little bit green, a little bit funky, that mossiness. It's expertly balanced, and running through the whole fragrance is this really great sort of ozonic, kind of salty and briny fragrance as well. I just love this candle. Like I said, this is the third or fourth time that I've burned it. This is absolutely going to be a repurchase for me and a recommendation for you. This candle performed pretty well. I burned it all the way down until I could see the wick nickels, and there was nothing left on there. I'd say that in my more open space, it got up to a 6.5. In the bedroom, it was definitely a 7. This candle absolutely had issues with those wicks. I know that a lot of people have been complaining about these wicks from Homeworx for a while now. They're very, very frail, crooked wicks, and you really have to kind of take care of them. When I would blow this candle out, I would take my wick dipper and I would try to like reposition the wicks so that they were standing up straight. I don't know if that really helped or not. Homeworx says that their wicks on these candles are self-trimming. I don't buy that. I think that you need to, at minimum, at least cut off the very top of the wick before you relight it, because at the top of those wicks, you do get that sort of like bulbous, hard kind of piece of carbon at the top of the wick. You need to at least cut that part off, or else it just immediately is going to start like billowing smoke and soot when you light the candle. So the wicks on this were a bit of a struggle. Getting it to pull out was sometimes a bit of a struggle, because the wicks would be sometimes like leaning practically like horizontal, right? So this candle, you had to give it at least 2 hours to pull out. I think sometimes it took even longer than 2 hours to pull out. But once it was burning for like 3 hours or so, it was getting up to pretty good strength and throw. Like I said, a 6.5 in my more open space, a 7 in the bedroom. Totally acceptable, really, really lovely. Yeah, I'm not a huge Homeworx fan, but I think that Homeworx does a fantastic job with their floral candles. I'd say that the type of candle that I buy the most from Homeworx are their floral candles, and this one was just fabulous. And the issues with the wicks and the pulling out and everything, ultimately it really wasn't that big of a deal. You know, once the candle got going properly, it was giving me good strength and throw. I was happy with it. Absolutely will be a repurchase for me. Now, Homeworx Homeworx, I think, really excels at floral fragrances. And I think that Village Candle really excels at fruity fragrances, at berry fragrances. They have an amazing strawberry candle. They have an amazing lemon candle. And this is Wild Maine Blueberry from Village Candle. And this is really sort of, I think, one of their flagship fragrances because this company was originally based out of Maine, Wild Maine Blueberry. This candle's been around for a really long time. This was a repurchase for me as well. This is probably the third or fourth time that I've burned this fragrance. And on the website, we do have a little bit of a scent story. Along the countryside of Maine, large wild blueberry barrens stretch across the beautiful fields and rolling hillsides. Inspired by the fragrance of a freshly picked batch, this candle features notes of wild blueberries, raspberries, cassis, lemon, and bergamot for a scent that will evoke daydreams of summer. Aw, yeah, I love this. This is a really great, bright, sweet blueberry fragrance. And we get a bunch of scent notes on it as well. It says top notes, tart lemon, lime zest, and bergamot. And the middle notes are wild blueberry, raspberry, and cassis. And the base notes are vanilla and fruity musk. And yeah, the top note, this is a very nice bright blueberry fragrance. The top notes in here are a lot of like great citrus notes. I'd say that I pick up most on lime and lemon than I do bergamot, really. I think lemon most of all. There's a really nice, bright, zesty lemon note in the top of this fragrance. Yeah, but the heart of this fragrance, I'd say, is a mixture of blueberry and raspberry. Even though this is supposed to be, I think, a blueberry forward candle, I'd say there's a lot more going on in this than just raspberry. I'd say it's like equal parts blueberry and raspberry in like the middle section of the fragrance, and that citrusy lemon on top. It gives it quite a tart, like fresh vibe, but it doesn't smell artificial, which I love. And that's my biggest qualm usually with fruit fragrances, especially fruit fragrances from Bath and Body Works. They tend to smell so artificial. This doesn't smell artificial to me. It smells very authentic, very bright, well balanced. Oh, I love it. And there is enough blueberry in here for, if you were to smell it on cold without knowing what this was, I think you'd absolutely pick out blueberry first and foremost, but also the raspberry and the lemon are extremely present. And then in the base, there is a little bit of something kind of smooth and musky, and it gives it a really nice finish and a really nice balance. I love this fragrance. Yeah, so nice. Just so bright and fresh. I had this candle burning on my desk in a hurricane, and some days I would let it burn for hours and hours and hours, probably like 7 or 8 hours. This is a 21.25 ounce candle with 2 wicks. Now, Village Candle says that on these candles, you don't need to trim the wicks. And unlike with Homeworx tells you that, but I don't listen. I think those wicks need trimming. Village Candle also tells you the wicks on these candles not to trim them, and I don't trim the wicks on these candles, and I've never had any problems with them. Look at how clean this jar is. And this is a 100% paraffin wax candle, you guys. 100% paraffin wax. I think that Village Candle, they do a great job with a lot of their candles. A lot of their candles are duds, just like any other candle company. I've gone through some Village candles before that were just absolute no's, but when they get it right, they get it so right. Like no sooting, no issues. This candle, there were probably a couple of burns on it where I was getting a little bit of itty bitty wicks and teeny tiny flames, but it was never like full blown like dudding out. You know, it was a pretty nice, consistent burn. I burned this almost always in a hurricane in a more medium space, and I'd say that under those conditions, it was getting up to like a 6.5. Yeah, definitely a 6.5. I had it in my bedroom in a hurricane for a while there, and I'd say that some of the long, like deep burns on it were getting up to a 7 in there for sure. So perfectly adequate strength and throw, lovely fragrance, beautiful clean burn. I love this candle. I will absolutely repurchase this candle at some point, and I heartily recommend that to anybody out there that loves a nice, bright, refreshing blueberry fragrance. Oh, you can't do better, I don't think, than Wild Maine Blueberry. I'm trying to think of a blueberry candle that is like available right now that I would prefer over that, and I can't think of one. I think that's my favorite blueberry candle. Also finished up a Lilac Blossoms from Yankee Candle. I also really loved this fragrance. This was a first for me. I'm really surprised that I hadn't burned Lilac Blossoms before because I absolutely loved it. I've talked enough about the appearance of their candles right now and the packaging. To be honest with you, I think that this 2-wick format has kind of grown on me. They're 20 ounces, 2 wicks, really beautiful wax on this. It doesn't look so beautiful anymore, but it was a beautiful colored wax. We have got a scent story for Lilac Blossoms. This is a floral fragrance. The heady, alluring scent of just opened lilac blossoms embodies the essence of spring. This true-to-life bouquet includes notes of dewy greens, bergamot, and moss to round out the fragrance. So the top notes are dewy greens, water lily, and bergamot. The middle notes are lilac petals, hyacinth, and tulip bulbs. And the base notes are cedar leaf, vetiver, and moss. I think this is an absolutely beautiful lilac fragrance. To compare it to something that everybody might be familiar with, to compare this to fresh cut lilacs from Bath and Body Works, I would say that Lilac Blossoms from Yankee, this is a sweeter floral. I do feel like this fragrance is really concentrated on the lilac blossom itself, and it leans quite a bit sweeter than Fresh Cut Lilacs from Bath and Body Works does. Fresh Cut Lilacs from Bath and Body Works actually has quite a like green component to it. Quite a lush and green component, and that scent of like the freshly cut like leaves and stems, whereas this is much more focused on the actual floral and the actual blossom of the lilac, and it's a really nicely balanced, sweeter lilac fragrance than a lot of people are probably used to. It's really lovely. I'd say that it sits in like a middle to high range. What you get first and foremost is absolutely that lilac fragrance, a kind of soft and sweet floral. And you do pick up on something a little bit deeper, a little bit funky in the base of it. What did they say? Moss, dewy greens. There is something, I wouldn't say there's not as much sort of like lush greenness happening in this fragrance as there is in something like Fresh Cut Lilacs from Bath and Body Works, but there is definitely kind of a light, like watery and green component to the fragrance. Yeah. Something kind of light and watery on top, a beautiful lilac note. I would never, the scent notes list hyacinth and tulip bulbs. I don't think I would ever be able to pick those scent notes out of here, but in the base, I'm definitely getting something a little bit greener and a little bit funky, where it says vetiver and moss. I absolutely pick up on that, and it really does sort of balance this fragrance out, and it's absolutely lovely. And also, I'd have to say that of these new sort of like clip art, metal lid format candles that I've burned so far, I think this is one of the best performing ones that I've had. I burned it all the way down until the entire candle had liquefied. A little bit of sootiness and discoloration, but I would let this candle sometimes burn for probably a bit longer than I should have. I'd let it burn probably 4 or 5 hours every once in a while. Didn't really have many problems. Very minimal discoloration and sootiness there. And the wax, it's not as beautiful as it used to look, but it still looks fairly clean actually. I'd say that the strength and throw on this was a very solid 6.5 in my more open space and a 7 in the bedroom. Just like apparently almost all of the candles that I finished burning this week. Yeah, a 6.5 in a more open space. Definitely had a presence to it. Smelled really, really lovely. Really had sort of like a floral garden vibe to it. And yeah, I had it in the bedroom for a little while too, and it easily got up to a 7 in there. So no complaints. Those are really good strength and throw numbers for a Yankee candle these days, in my opinion. I was really happy with this one. I'm glad I discovered it. This will absolutely be a repurchase for me and a recommendation for you as well. I enjoyed this candle tremendously. Okay, that's all I've got in terms of candles this week for the weekly wax wrap up. Let's get into a little bit of candle chat. Lots happening at Bath & Body Works right now. They just released tons of fall candles. If you haven't seen them yet, I have done a couple fall candle hauls and store walkthroughs for Bath & Body Works. My most recent candle haul, I've got the new collection of candles that has football season and autumn evening in it. And I don't think that these candles have popped up in most places in the States yet, but they have popped up here in Canada. And so if you want to check out my candle haul for those, I got pretty in-depth about a lot of those new fall fragrances. Also, cinnamon sugar coffee cake is in that haul as well. Lots going on at Bath & Body Works, thank goodness, because it's been a really kind of lame sort of first 2 quarters of the year for them, in my opinion. But now they've got everything going on. Tons and tons of new fall stuff. They still have, at my stores at least, the big 3 tables just full of Halloween happening right now. So yeah, Bath & Body Works seems to be back in business. So I'm happy about that. It's given me a lot of like fun videos to make over the last couple of weeks. So get into a Bath & Body Works if you haven't yet, because finally there's quite a bit of interesting stuff happening. I'm almost finished burning that Moonlit Goddess candle. I really like it. I really like the fragrance. I wish that the strength and throw was a little bit better. I'm almost done. I've only got about a third left, so I will probably have a review for Moonlit Goddess coming out at some point this week. Over at Goose Creek, they have started releasing a whole bunch of fall. They just dropped one fall collection, which is very similar to the fall collection Bath & Body Works dropped, first of all. It's kind of like a camping collection, like an outdoorsy, like mountainside type of collection. There's lots of interesting looking fragrances in there. They also dropped a full-blown like pumpkin collection, so you can get pumpkin vanilla wafers and pumpkin and berry strudel and pumpkin bread, and all those pumpkin things are on the website now at Goose Creek. I'm really curious to know what Goose Creek is going to do for Halloween. I think we should be expecting Goose Creek to start dropping Halloween stuff at any moment now. For the last several years, they've put out like their regular sort of Halloween candles, but they've also been doing a collaboration every Halloween. Last year it was a Beetlejuice collaboration, and the year before that it was a Hocus Pocus candle collaboration. So I'm really interested to see what Goose Creek is doing for Halloween. I just bought so many fall candles from Bath & Body Works. I think I picked up like 25 fall candles from Bath & Body Works. So I am holding off on Goose Creek for now. There was nothing in those first couple of fall collections that they put out that was like screaming my name, like I had to get it. So I'm not ordering any fall candles from them right away. I think I'm probably gonna wait until they drop their Halloween candles, and then I'll place a big Goose Creek order that will include their Halloween stuff and also some of the fall stuff that I might be interested in. I know that Kringle Candle just has been blitzing everybody with Halloween Halloween, I follow a lot of the Kringle candle ambassadors. And so every time I'm opening up YouTube, every single one of them are, promoting the Kringle Halloween stuff that's happening. And it looks good. If you guys are new to my channel, I haven't really been buying from Kringle candle for the last couple of years, ever since they switched to a 100% soy wax formula. They're just too expensive for me to get up here, particularly considering that more often than not, I am not pleased with the strength and throw that we've been getting from Kringle ever since they switched to 100% soy. But Halloween is a really big deal over at Kringle, and people love that stuff. And it looks, all of the stuff I'm seeing the ambassadors sort of promoting looks really, really cool and awesome. So I'm sure people are buzzing about that. Nothing very interesting ever happening really at Yankee Candle or Village Candle. I know that Yankee Candle is doing a pretty big sort of like rebrand right now. They're reformatting a lot of their candles. They're reformatting their jars and reformulating their fragrances. All of the optimistic fans of Yankee are saying that they're getting cleaner wax and they're going to be using more fragrance oils. It's always so hard to know what to believe. I'm just happy that Yankee Candle has branched back out into the Canadian markets. If you are in Canada, the best place to be getting your Yankee candles right now is at Walmart. You can get these 2-wick tumblers for like $29, and you can get those little 1-wick studio candles that they do for like 16 or 17 bucks. The last time I was at Walmart, I took some video of the selection that they had. They have a pretty decent selection. I'd say they have about a dozen different fragrances in those two formats. So it's not great, but it is better than nothing. Anyways, I think that's all I can really think of off the top of my head in terms of interesting candle chat news. Man, I've been busy for the last month, you guys, and it's not lightening up anytime soon. It was Stampede here in Calgary last week, and I ended up really doing a lot more than I usually do. For those of you that aren't familiar, here in Calgary, we have the Calgary Stampede every single summer. It lasts for 10 days, 2 weekends, and it's a very big deal. They have a midway with games and rides. They have tons of concerts at various venues. They set up big giant tents downtown in the city where they have different concerts and parties and things like that. They have an actual rodeo that happens every single day, twice a day. I actually went to the rodeo this year. It was kind of like a corporate thing for work. Our boss got us like a big, beautiful table in the wine room at this restaurant called Ranahan's, where you can have we had a great 6-course meal, and then you can take your drinks out to the bleachers and you can watch the rodeo. And I actually got really, really into it. We had the most fun. The only thing that I don't like about the rodeo is when they have to do the cattle roping, the calf roping, the poor little baby cows, I love it when the cowboys and the cowgirls are riding around on their horses and they have to do the barrels and the obstacles and stuff like that. But do we have to keep doing the calf roping, you guys? It seems so mean to me. Those poor little calves don't stand a chance. I'm such a wimp. I actually left during some of the calf roping stuff because I just can't stand seeing those cute little cows being and then they flip them over and tie up their legs. It had been a long time since I had actually gone to the legit rodeo, and so I really enjoyed watching the horses run around. But this whole calf roping thing, can we just call it a day with that? It's just so not necessary anymore in this day and age. But yeah, so I enjoyed the rodeo. My favorite part of the Stampede, though, was absolutely Drag Me to Cowboys. Drag Me to Cowboys is one of the biggest drag shows that happens in North America. It happens every year at the Calgary Stampede, and they do it in the big gigantic Cowboys tent. And I have a really like fabulous, generous friend who got us like a VIP box in like the sky rooms. So we had like a great big box to ourselves with some air conditioning and a really great view. And the queens were so good. We had Alaska there, and Alaska is the singer of such hit songs like Your Makeup is Terrible. That's a good song. If You're Not Wearing Nails, You're Not Doing Drag. That's a really good song too. Alaska was amazing. She was a winner of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars Season 2. And Jujubee was there as well. And Jujubee was amazing. She sang that ballad song that she does with live vocals, and she was phenomenal. And Willem was there too, which is a lot of fun because Willem's kind of known as like the bad girl of the drag industry. You know, she got like kicked off of RuPaul's Drag Race and is like banned from that franchise. But she is hilarious and puts on a fantastic show, so that was fun. And then the headliner was Kim Petras, and I am a huge Kim Petras fan. I have loved Kim Petras ever since she first started releasing music, but I had never had the chance to see her live. She was absolutely phenomenal, really high energy, lots and lots of fun. She did a cover of You're Still the One by Shania Twain. That was really, really good. So the highlight of the Stampede for me this year was 100% the Drag Me to Cowboys. I mean, it was just a fantastic day. I mean, me and my buddies, we were partying from 2 in the afternoon until 2 at night. Like, the doors to Cowboys opened at 2 o'clock. I think we were there until like 7. Then we went into a pub. Then we went over to my buddy's place. Then we ended the night at Twisted Element, taking our shirts off on the dance floor as per usual. Really, really fun Stampede this week. But now I'm kind of really back to the grind. I can't make a ton of promises on the amount of videos that I'm going to be posting over the next 6 weeks. You guys know I'm committed to always having the weekly wax wrap up every Sunday. I'm going to do my best to keep the channel going as much as I can. I'm entering into a very, very, very busy time for work. Over the next 6 weeks, I'm going to be in Victoria and then Vancouver and then Edmonton, Red Deer, and Winnipeg. Yeah, I'm going to the AFN in Winnipeg. So lots and lots of work travel coming up. Oh, at one of the Stampede parties that I went to, I got to meet the Mayor Giotti, and she was really, really, really lovely. And I had a chance to just briefly talk to her about a lot of the work that I'm doing in the justice sector around like anti-human trafficking. And she was really receptive and lovely and gave me some words of encouragement. So that was another great thing that came out of the Calgary Stampede. But yeah, it's going to be a very, very busy end of summer for me. So bear with me, folks. You guys know I'll probably be doing some candle reviews on the road. As Heather says, apropos Heather, hey girl. She always calls those videos my aesthetic hotel room series. Because I do take candles on the road with me when I'm traveling. And so when I finish one off, I will prop my cell phone up on that kitchenette and record a candle review for you guys. I will try to keep up as much as I can. What else did I want to talk to you about? Oh my God, well, Sex in the City. Sex in the City, and just like that, who watched the latest karaoke episode? Oh my God, Scarioke, you guys. The episode opened with Charlotte's daughter Lily screaming, ah! Like, how many times do we have to listen to girls screaming on this TV show? It's like once an episode, somebody's screaming. We've got Lily sitting up in bed looking at her phone, high-pitched scream. Charlotte's like, what's wrong? Lily's like, Diego just broke up with me. So her boyfriend dumped her. Her boyfriend, who is, I don't understand why this was even a plot at all. Lily is dating this boy who is a ballet dancer, and he was a polyamorous, polysexual, non-binary, LGBTQIA plus type person. And the best line so far in the entire series was when the grumpy grandfather, they're all sitting around the dinner table, and the grumpy grandfather says to this guy, Polly wants some brisket? Well, anyways, so he's broken up with Lily, and Lily is just screaming at the top of her lungs about it. And like, this is a really good example of this show. They're trying so hard to like be diverse and be politically correct that it's actually a little bit offensive, because the only thing that this character did was like show up in his polyamorous, non-binary, demisexual glory, and that was the only character beat that there was for him, that he was pansexual or whatever. That's the only character beat he had, and they were together, they had that dinner with the family, and now they're broken up. Like, what was the point of that? And who cares about Charlotte's daughter Lily in the first place? I don't care about any of the kids. We don't want to see the kids on this show. Next! So, it's Charlotte's birthday. Charlotte's been going through it because Harry has prostate cancer, but they're not telling anybody, but they finally do at the end of this episode. So Carrie wants to go all out for Charlotte's birthday and is going to throw her a big surprise party. And of course, Miranda in this series is like the biggest nerdy dork in the world. So Miranda she buys a karaoke machine, brings it over to Carrie's party. And so, yes, you guys, a solid, at least half or more of this episode was Charlotte's karaoke house party at Carrie's place, and it was as bad as you would expect it to be. We had to watch LGBT's son sing like 2 or 3 different show tunes, and then we had to watch this girl, one of Charlotte's co-workers, belting out River Deep, Mountain High, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then we had to watch this bitch singing, what's her name? Like Mitzi von Furstenberger or whatever. We had to watch Misty ruining that Bradley Cooper Lady Gaga song Shallow. She's like, in the shallow, in the shallow, I'm like, oh my god, this episode was really hard to watch. This was probably one of the worst. This karaoke party just went on for way too long, but we did have quite a bit of an appearance from my new favorite, least favorite, terrible character, the man-hating chain smoker named Seema. So Seema is going to get eyelash extensions, which I didn't know was a thing. I can't imagine anything worse or more uncomfortable. You ladies out there, ladies, we're getting eyelash extensions? I didn't know about that. I knew that we were doing lots of like fake eyelashes, but I didn't know that we were going in there and tying on extensions to our real eyelashes. That sounds like a nightmare. I'm not a big fan of stuff happening with my eyes. I would rather go to the dentist than go to the optometrist for sure. I don't like people being around my eyes, touching my eyes, tying eyelashes into my eyes. I don't want anything squirted into my eyes. Anyways, so Seema's getting her eyelash extensions done, and, you know, she's fallen on hard times now. She's trying to save money, so she's not going to the usual fancy spa that she goes to. She's having to go to a spa that's a little bit more ghetto to have her eyelash extensions done. And so she ends up with an eye infection and has to show up to Charlotte's birthday party with an eye patch over her eye, which is just a fantastic excuse for the writers to really flex their funny bone and tons of jokes. Oh, hello there, you Park Avenue pirate. Oh my god. So many eye patch jokes, so many pirate jokes, just absolutely hilarious. And I think that this entire plot, Seema's eye infection and the extensions, all of this was done so that at the karaoke party, the gardener, Carrie's gardener, who's been like fixing her garden up for months now, Carrie's gardener shows up and has a crush on Seema. I predicted that this was going to happen in like the first episode of this season. So this whole plot line was done so that the gardener could get up there on the microphone and sing Betty Davis I to Seema. She's got Betty Davis I mean, ha 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 ha. You see what he did there? Because Seema has to wear an eye patch, and so instead of saying Betty Davis eyes, he says Betty Davis eye. Oh my God. She's got Betty Davis eye. And of course, Seema's in the crowd just like falling in love, and they're like making out in the taxi cab on the way home. Oh my God, whatever, who cares? Really not one of the most interesting episodes. We had Patti LuPone show up for no reason. Patti LuPone is playing Anthony's boyfriend's mother. And since Anthony is so much older than his boyfriend's mother, Patti LuPone, really doesn't approve of them dating. We had a scene with boring Miranda and her boring new girlfriend. Miranda's new girlfriend is so boring. She like works for the BBC or whatever, and she's from England, and she seems perfectly great. Like, she seems like a really, really smart, intelligent, successful, classy woman. But there's nothing very funny or exciting about a successful, smart woman who has her act together. Nothing exciting about that. I mean, this is just such a snooze fest, this relationship. This is really making me miss the days of Rosie O'Donnell, the virgin nun from Winnipeg, and Che Diaz, the polyamorous, non-binary, pansexual, stand-up comedy concert podcaster. I'm missing her as well because this new girlfriend is just boring AF. And I feel like that's all that happened. We hardly saw this character at all. Thank goodness. I still don't know this girl's name. Everyone calls her by her initials, and so I just call her LGBT. And her father died for the second time in the last episode, and so we didn't see much from her this episode. Thank goodness. I do need to tell you guys, though, I mean, I'm just like, this show has me just in a spiral, you know, in a spiral. I just can't get enough. I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop thinking about how terrible it is. My friend, you guys know Steve. Steve informed me the other day that there is a podcast for this show, and it is an official podcast featuring all of the writers and the producers. And I was like, well, oh my God, I need to listen to this. I need to figure out if they are trolling us, if what they're doing they think is like genius, like storytelling. I need to listen to this podcast ASAP. And so I did. And so the podcast, you can't make this stuff up. The podcast is the creator, producer, writer, director, Michael Patrick King, who did the original series and is leading the charge on this new series. He's kind of like the host, the moderator of this podcast. And then all of the other people on this podcast are the other writers and producers, the people that are writing these scripts and producing the show and directing the show. And guess what, you guys? They all think they're making brilliant, groundbreaking television. They are all talking about making this show so earnestly. And they're saying things like, we really needed a plot device that would expand the storyline of this person's character arc. And that's story writing 101, people. They're saying things like that. They are talking about this show earnestly. They are talking about, you know, the motivations of the characters and the plot devices that they're using. They think they are making brilliant TV. They didn't talk about the fact that in season 1, LGBT said that her dad was dead, and then he rose back from the dead in season 2 to come to a dinner party, and then he died again in season 3. They're not addressing anything like that. They're just congratulating each other. Oh, Derek, you did such a wonderful job writing this scene. I love the way that it really showcased the friction between these two characters, and it really subverted everybody's expectations. They're saying shit like that as if they think they are geniuses. I don't think they're purposefully trolling us. I think that they sincerely and earnestly and in a very like nerdy way think that they're making one of the best television shows ever created. I mean, that's the way that they're all talking to each other. They're all kissing each other's butts, congratulating each other on another fantastic, groundbreaking episode. I mean, you have got to listen to this podcast, folks, if you need another good laugh. If you need another good laugh, there's nothing funnier than watching this train wreck of a TV show and then listening to all of the people responsible for creating that TV show talk about how genius it is. So much fun. I just love it. It brings me joy. Anyways, that's all I have for you folks today. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. You can follow me on Instagram at allaboutcandles and email your burning questions to allaboutcandles@gmail.com. If you could hit me up with a like, a comment, subscribe to my channel, that would really mean the world to me. Make sure you check out the description box below to see links to other videos and full-length reviews that you might be interested in. I will be back at some point this week with some candle reviews for us, so stay tuned. And until next time, my dear, gorgeous, and beautiful candle-loving friends, let's burn some candles and bitch about it. Thanks, you guys. Bye for now. Have a great week.